This is a short video to explain the new categorical marking system that we have implemented at BIM this year. So in this short video, we're going to identify the key features of the system and when to use it, and we will explore the advantages and disadvantages and how to actually use it in practice. So what is it? Well, it's not a totally new system. We're still going to be grading the work between 0 and 100, but you'll have less grades available within each band. So for example, if you're giving out a 2-1 mark to a student, instead of a range from 60 to 69, you'll actually only be able to give one of 3 marks. So a 62, which is equivalent to a low 2-1, a 65, a middling 2-1, or a 68, a high 2-1. So you pick which category you think best fits the student's performance in relation to the published assessment criteria, so the generic marking scheme and the brief. Generally it's been found in other HEIs that it makes marking more accurate, more transparent for students, and makes tutors or examiners more accountable for the marks they give. So yeah, we're trying it out, and this is what it looks like. So as you can see, we've got the same categories as normal: first, 2-1, 2-2, third, and fail. And how you award those is just the same as before. So 70 and above is a first, 39 and below is a fail, but there are less marking categories available. So you can see those down the side there. So when do we use it? Well, it's been approved for use in all level 4 assessments currently, so anything on the University of Sussex. This is 2017-18. This is a trial year. It's likely that if it's successful, we'll apply it to other assessments in the future. So it may be that next year we use BA1 and BA2 and then everything following that. And it's used across all BA1 assessments apart from any standardised tests or written exams. So anything where you're actually giving a mark at 100 or like a theory exam, for example, that will be the same. But everything else it'll be used for, and the scheme has been published on all assessment briefs for students so they know to expect it. So why are we using it? Well, it encourages markers to make firm decisions about the standard of work by referencing to the assessment criteria for the classification band selected. So you can't really use it in isolation, you've got to use it with the generic marking scheme, and it encourages you to decide whether the work is a really good example of work in that category, kind of middling example, or at the lower end. And it also encourages markers to use a full range of the marking scale because there are less options available. And it generally reduces the level of subjectivity involved with the standard holistic marking. So we've actually had complaints from students before saying, I've got a 93 and my friend's got a 94 and I don't know why. It kind of makes that a little bit clearer for everyone. So it improves consistency, transparency and classification of individual assessment marking and overall awards. And it has been found to improve NSS results as well, as there is a question there about the clarity of assessment criteria. So that is why we're giving it a go. There are some challenges, so it does reduce the granularity of available marks choices. So some people do like to be able to distinguish between a 55 and a 56 or whatever, but generally that's very subjective, and you will not tend to find markers always landing on exactly the same mark, whereas moderation with a system like this, people tend to come out with much more similar grades. It can lead to grade inflation. So when you've got a small number of available categories, markers tend to be more generous, which can lead to students' grand means, mark averages being a little bit higher. What we're actually going to do is see at the end of this year what effect the system has had on the mean and median marks in modules and for students. So how do we use it? Well, as I said, it has to be used in conjunction with the generic marking scheme. And this can be found on all assessment briefs. There are 3 schemes, one for each level. So for the purposes of this year, as we're using it at level 4, we're going to look at the level 4 generic marking scheme. So here we have it. As you can see, there are all the grade bandings here, and you have a description for each of the categories, which is what the work roughly looks like. It is used for all kinds of assessments, so for academic assessments, as well as practical and creative work, and it can sometimes be challenging to relate to the criteria. And that's something that our external examiners really want to see more of. So I think the system should also help us to improve the way that we do that in our feedback too. So when you've got a piece of work in front of you, obviously you look at the learning outcomes, you assess how well it's met the brief, but you also need to look at the generic marking scheme to ensure that the marks you give are consistent with other marking across the university. So we generally get a sense of what grade banding it fits in. So it may be that you're looking at a piece of work, it's roughly within the 2-1 category, but there are elements from perhaps the categories above and below. So let's take a closer look at that. So yeah, you just need to decide what category it goes in, and then if you feel that there are aspects that kind of fit within the higher or lower category, that might help inform you which of the 3 choices you are going to make. So say the piece of work is a 2-1 with some really good things, just not quite a first, you would probably award it a 68, as it's kind of an almost good enough, edging towards the first category, but not quite. So yeah, that's how you do it really. And what you need to then do is explain your thinking in the feedback. So the students always want to know why they've got the grade they've got. Of course, we want lots of fantastic developmental feedback as well, but a clear explanation for the students will certainly help them to understand how to reach the next grading category. So I've actually made some templates. So the new feedback template for gradebook, and there's a grading sheet for Turnitin, which asks you to comment on why you've awarded the grade you've awarded and reference the generic criteria. And there'll actually be a video which shows you how to use those. So it'll probably take a while to get used to if you tend not to reference the generic criteria. But once you've got into the swing of it, it should make grading and giving feedback a little easier. So I guess one thing to do is to track the grades you're awarding as you go. You may find that once you've got into a rhythm, you want to go back and change a few, but actually I think you'll probably do this less than normal because, as I said earlier, the system generally helps markers to be firmer in their decisions because you really relate that work back to the criteria and decide whether it's a high, middle or lower example. But yeah, you might find that you want to change it as you go along. So it's a good idea to track the grades in the submission checklist that the exams team give you. And if you're struggling with a new system or you're unsure about your decisions, it's totally normal when you're using a new system. So do just get a second opinion. Try your module leader, course leader, or come to me, and we'll be happy to help you out. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. It's really straightforward. It'd be great to know how you find it as you go along. Any feedback or suggestions for using it would be really helpful. And enjoy the short recap quiz. Thanks. Bye.